Greetings and welcome. Today, I'm going to show you how a classical liberal deals with wanton and fanatical intolerance. Now keep in mind, we classical liberals renounce the use of governmental coercion against any kind of free speech, no matter how vile, hateful, or oppressive. As a matter of fact, the great Voltaire, one of the first classical liberal thinkers, once wrote, "I may disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." And I also hold this view. Well, maybe I will not fight to the death for vile, hateful speech. However, I do not believe that it ought to be politically censored. On the other hand, that very same Voltaire, who, by the way, is hanging on my closet door to my right, also said, "Écraser l'infâme," which in French means erase infamy. And by infamy, Voltaire specifically meant religious intolerance, vile religious intolerance of the kind that you are about to be exposed to. You see, just today, I came across a group on Facebook. The group's title is "'Tis a Shame So Many Books Go Unburned." Its officer, the man in charge of the group, is one Charles Lejeune, a student who attends Hillsdale College. His official title is Inquisitor Generalis. Now, if you think this group is a joke, as I thought at first, well, you're about to be in for quite a surprise. Here is the first paragraph of this group's description. "Bad literature abounds. Corruptive doctrines published in collected stacks of paper with covers of leather and cardboard bound by a spine are foolishly considered to merit special protection. There is no reason for it, nor has there ever been a legitimate justification preferred to adequately rationalize the escape of lies from their due destruction by fire. A silly stigma formed upon little contemplation, resulting from 5 centuries of foul liberal culture, has acted to enshrine awful ideas and thoughts merely because they are presented in books with the imprimatur of some publisher." Now those are just the first 2 paragraphs of a description that continues becoming increasingly vile. Now, if you're thinking, what kinds of books must they be up against? Let's take a look for a moment. Well, there's the obvious case of something like Mein Kampf. They think Mein Kampf ought to be banned, as do many people in Germany today mistakenly. They think that something that reveals the plans of a fanatical dictator should not be read, and maybe the mistakes that led people to embrace those plans ought to be repeated out of ignorance. But that is not all. Among the other vile works this group seeks to ban is Harry Potter. Under the Harry Potter book cover picture in this group's gallery, Charles Lejeune writes that this work, quote, "fascinates children with and inoculates them to occultism." Furthermore, we have such vile works as the Talmud, which Mr. Scott George McComb calls possibly the vilest book of them all. Can you seriously believe in the sanity of anybody who believes that the Talmud is the vilest book of them all? Let's take a look further here to a book by Martin Luther, whose only justification for being in the list of books that are to be burned is, quote, "Martin Luther wrote this one." Very smart reason, Mr. Lejeune. Continuing on, we have, oh, this is interesting, the complete works of John Locke. This is the same man who brought to you the Second Treatise on Civil Government, and such heretical and absolutely intolerable ideas as the inalienable natural rights of man, such as the right of property, the right to life, the right to liberty, the right to the safety of one's possessions, one's health, the right to the fruits of one's labor. All of these things are to be banned, according to Mr. Lejeune and his acolytes. Continuing on, we have, the Constitution of the United States, which Mr. Lejeune labels, quote, communist propaganda. Now, if you think the Constitution is to be banned, you probably also think the Declaration of Independence is to be banned. Mr. Lejeune says that the Declaration of Independence is, quote, more communist propaganda, and he adds, no, your eyes are not deceiving you. Now, can you seriously believe that there is any legitimacy in the views of a man who would burn and trample on the very instruments that ensure the protection of his right to spew such vile, hateful recommendations? He is undermining the very ground he stands on, because believe me, if it were not for the constitutional protection of his right of free speech in the First Amendment, if he had been living in a country that does not have a Bill of Rights, and that embraces political correctness as many countries do today, he would not have been allowed to publish this kind of speech. He is undermining the very basis for his ability to say what he is saying. And I do not believe that he cannot recognize that. Oh yes, the first picture in his gallery of books that is to be burned celebrates the burning of Bosnia's National Library in Sarajevo, the largest book burning in history. Now, let us take a look at this individual, Mr. Charles Lejeune, who advocates destroying some of the most interesting books ever published in history. Well, this man believes that the internet ought to be dismantled. It says so in his Facebook profile. Now, the internet is the precise instrument that Mr. Lejeune is using to suggest censorship of a medieval nature. Indeed, he admits so much. He also says in his profile that homosexuals ought not at all be tolerated, and rather ought to be subjected to the medieval treatment for sodomites, in his own words. So he would burn people at the stake. He would subject them to the Inquisition, most certainly, simply because they choose to embrace a lifestyle different from his own. And of course, there is no place in the mindset of this man for toleration of different religious beliefs from his own. I mean, he would burn the works of Martin Luther. Not to mention, of course, toleration for such vile individuals as atheists and agnostics. Oh no. Those individuals must be purged from society. Now, I've shown you the best way to combat this kind of fanatical intolerance, and that is through ridicule. Because while I believe that Mr. Lejeune and his acolytes have the right to spew their hateful rhetoric, we should not let them get away with it. We should not give them any kind of aura of legitimacy. They need to be derided, they need to be mocked, they need to be shown for the perpetrators of vile ideas that they are. They need to be boycotted, and all their friends need to know that they hold the beliefs that they proudly display on their Facebook group. And if this is the case, then perhaps we can prevent such beliefs from infecting the minds of yet other individuals. Long live freedom, long live modernity, long live a society in which individuals can speak their mind and publish as they see fit.